My name's Lisa. I'm 29, and I got married last Saturday in what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. The kind of day you look back on when you're old and gray. The kind of day people tell you will fly by in a blur of laughter, love, and family. And for the most part, it was, except for the gaping, empty seats that were meant for the people I loved most. If you have ever felt betrayed by the people who should have been your biggest supporters, let me know where you are watching from. Every time I glanced toward them, I felt that same dull ache in my chest. Here's the part that still makes my stomach turn. Not a single member of my family came. Not my parents, not my sister, not even my best friend, Jolie, who's been like a sister to me since we were kids. Instead, they all went to my sister's engagement party. Yes, you read that right. My sister, Alina, scheduled her engagement party on the exact same day as my wedding after knowing my date for 8 months, and my family chose her. It wasn't even subtle. The invites to her party went out 2 months before my wedding, with save-the-date cards that were practically screaming for attention. Gold foil, fancy script, professional photos of her and her fiancé kissing on a rooftop at sunset. Meanwhile, when I sent my invitations, all I got back were short, awkward texts. My mom wrote, "We'll have to see if we can make it work, dear." My dad didn't even respond, just sent me a thumbs up emoji 3 days later. I tried to tell myself I was overthinking it. Alina has always been the favorite, the golden child who could do no wrong. She got the bigger bedroom when we were kids, the car on her 16th birthday, and my parents' constant, unwavering attention. I was used to playing second fiddle, but I thought, naively, that my wedding would be different. 2 weeks before the big day, I called my mom to confirm their travel plans. She hesitated for a long moment before saying, "Lisa, about the wedding, your sister's engagement party is the same day. It's going to be difficult for us to attend both." I laughed at first, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. "So you're not coming?" I asked, my voice cracking in a way I hated. "It's just that her future in-laws are flying in from Europe. It's such a rare opportunity to have everyone together," she said, as if that justified skipping my wedding entirely. "Mom, this is my wedding, my one wedding." She sighed like I was being unreasonable. "You'll understand when you have kids of your own. We just can't be in 2 places at once." I hung up without saying goodbye. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I didn't tell my fiancé, Ray, right away. I didn't want to ruin his excitement. But the next few days were a blur of awkward conversations with family members, each one regretfully informing me they couldn't make it. Jolie, my maid of honor, called me the night before the wedding and said, "I'm really sorry, Lisa, but Alina's party, it's kind of a big deal. I can't miss it." When the day came, I walked down the aisle with a smile plastered on my face, the kind you wear when you're trying to pretend everything's fine. Ray looked handsome, like something out of a dream. Our friends filled the room with warmth and laughter, and I did my best to focus on them. But every time my eyes wandered toward the empty section of chairs, my chest tightened. The ceremony went off without a hitch, and for a few blissful moments, I forgot the hurt. It wasn't until the reception, just as we cut the cake, that reality came crashing back. My phone, sitting on the table beside me, lit up with a text from my mom. "We need to talk now." Before I could even process it, the screen filled with notifications. Call after call. 52 missed calls in less than an hour. My hand froze around the cake knife. The laughter around me blurred into a low hum. Ray noticed the look on my face and whispered, "What's wrong?" I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the phone, my heart pounding, wondering what could possibly be so urgent that my mother, who hadn't shown up to my wedding, was suddenly desperate to reach me. And then the phone buzzed again, this time with a message that made my stomach drop. It was from my cousin Amelia, the one person in my family who occasionally slipped me bits of truth when the rest of them tried to keep me in the dark. Her message read, "You won't believe what's happening here. Call me when you can, but don't tell anyone I told you." That single line was enough to make my pulse quicken. I didn't reply right away. I knew if I did, she might get pulled into whatever storm was brewing. But the pit in my stomach told me it had something to do with Alina's engagement party. I slipped my phone into my pocket, trying not to let it ruin the moment. But my mind wouldn't stop spinning. I barely heard the DJ calling for our first dance. I held Ray close, swaying to the music. Yet all I could picture was my parents, my sister, and my so-called best friend, all gathered in some lavish hall, sipping champagne and smiling for photos, while I celebrated one of the most important days of my life without them. After the dance, I excused myself for a quick bathroom break and stepped outside into the cool night air. The music from the reception hall muffled behind me. I finally called Amelia. She picked up on the first ring. "Lisa, they're talking about you," she blurted, her voice low, like she was hiding in a closet. "They're saying you selfishly planned your wedding to compete with Alina's big day. Your mom's been telling people you did it on purpose." I froze. "What? That's insane. I announced my date months before she even got engaged." "I know," Amelia said quickly, "but they're making it sound like you wanted to upstage her. And get this, your dad's been telling her fiancé's family that you're not very close to the family anymore, so it's understandable that none of them came." My mouth went dry. They're rewriting the story while it's happening. "That's not all," she continued. "Jolie's here. She's been going around saying she couldn't be your maid of honor because you were being difficult about the guest list. Like, she's making it sound like you didn't even want her there." For a moment, I couldn't speak. Jolie, the woman I'd shared every major milestone with, standing there at my sister's engagement party, trashing me to people I barely knew. Amelia hesitated before adding, "And your mom's calling you because, well, I don't know the whole thing, but apparently she needs you to fix something for Alina tonight. She said it's urgent. That's why she's been calling so much." The absurdity of it hit me like a slap. They skipped my wedding to go to my sister's engagement party, and now, in the middle of my reception, they needed me to fix something for her. I wanted to hang up and walk back inside, pretend I'd never heard any of it, but I couldn't shake the anger clawing up my throat. My entire life, this was the pattern. They'd hurt me, make me the villain in their story, and then come to me when they needed something. And I'd always given in, because they were my family. But that night, standing outside in the dark, with the faint sound of clinking glasses and laughter from two different celebrations miles apart, I felt something shift. I didn't tell Ray yet. I didn't want to ruin his night with my family's drama, but the weight of it sat heavy in my chest. When I walked back inside, the room was alive with music, friends were dancing, and for a brief moment, I let myself smile. But every so often, I'd feel my phone buzz again. Another call, another text. My mom's name flashing across the screen like a reminder that the people who should have been there for me had chosen someone else, and still expected me to drop everything for them. By the time the night ended, I had 68 missed calls, and the last voicemail they left made my hands curl into fists. When Ray and I finally got back to our hotel suite that night, we were exhausted. The kind of tired that comes from smiling for hours, while your heart is quietly breaking. I was just about to toss my phone onto the dresser and forget about it until morning when I saw a new text from Amelia. It wasn't a paragraph this time, it was just a photo. I tapped it open and my stomach turned. There, in crisp, high-def clarity, was my sister Alina, standing at her engagement party wearing my late grandmother's wedding necklace. It wasn't just any piece of jewelry, it was the one heirloom I'd been promised since I was a teenager. My grandmother had pulled me aside when I was 19, just before she passed, and told me, "Lisa, this is for the man you marry. I want you to wear it on your wedding day." She even wrote it in her will. That necklace had been in a velvet box in my mother's safe for years, and when I asked about it a few months ago, Mom told me, "Oh, it's not in good condition anymore. Best not to use it." Now, here it was, glittering around Alina's neck, matching perfectly with her designer dress. And the worst part, in the background of the photo, I saw Jolie, my best friend, smiling next to her, holding a glass of champagne. I just sat there staring at it, my pulse in my ears. Ray noticed my expression. "What is it?" he asked softly. I hesitated. We'd made a pact to keep the day about us, not my family's nonsense. But as I showed him the photo, his jaw tightened. "That's the necklace your grandmother left for you?" I nodded. My voice was tight. "My mom told me it was damaged. She lied. She gave it to Alina for her engagement party." Ray sank onto the bed, his hands curling in his lap. "Lisa, that's not just disrespectful. That's theft." As if on cue, my phone buzzed again. Another call from Mom. I let it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me. I put it on speaker. Her voice filled the room, cheerful at first, then sharp. "Lisa, I don't know why you're not answering. Alina had a little problem tonight. The caterer overbooked, and we're short on a few things. We need you to call in a favor with that restaurant. You know, the one in town. And oh, by the way, I gave her grandma's necklace so she could wear something meaningful tonight. Don't make this a big deal. It's just a piece of jewelry. Call me back." Now, I think that was the moment something in me truly snapped. It wasn't just the absence at my wedding. It wasn't just the gossip and the lies. It was that she could take something so deeply personal, something tied to my grandmother's memory, and hand it over to my sister like it was nothing. The weight of that betrayal sank in slowly, like ice spreading through my chest. All those years of swallowing my pride, of telling myself they didn't mean to hurt me, of making excuses, it hit me that they never saw me as worth protecting, not even on the most important day of my life. I sat there in silence for a long time, phone still in my hand, before setting it down. My mind was already starting to move past the shock, past the hurt, and into something colder, sharper. This time I wasn't going to just let it go. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the hotel curtains, but it felt muted, like the world had dimmed a little. Ray was still asleep beside me, his hand curled loosely around mine, but my mind was far from the quiet warmth of that moment. I checked my phone. The barrage hadn't stopped. 93 missed calls now, 22 voicemails, dozens of texts, some from my mom, some from my dad, a few even from distant relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years. Most of them saying the same thing: you need to call your sister. Not congratulations on your wedding. Not we're sorry we couldn't be there. Just orders, demands, and guilt-laced messages that made my stomach twist. I finally played another voicemail. This one from Dad. His tone was clipped, almost annoyed. Lisa, I don't know what's gotten into you, but ignoring your family on a night like this is childish. We were hoping you'd be more mature now that you're married. Call your mother back and do the right thing. The right thing, as if they had done the right thing by me. That day should have been filled with brunches, laughter, and retelling the best moments from the night before. Instead, I spent it with an ache in my chest and a fog in my mind. We went for a quiet breakfast at a little cafe near the water, and though Ray tried to keep the conversation light, I could see the way his eyes searched mine, worried. When we got back to the hotel, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the small overnight bag I'd packed for the wedding. Among the neatly folded clothes was an empty velvet box, my grandmother's necklace box. I'd brought it with me, thinking I'd surprise Ray with the real thing. But when my mom told me it was damaged, I tucked it away instead. Now, it felt like a cruel reminder of just how little my family respected me. I didn't cry. I thought I might, but the tears didn't come. Instead, there was this hollow, gnawing space inside me where something used to be. And in that emptiness, tiny threads of thought began weaving together. Quiet, subtle, but persistent. I didn't tell Ray yet, but I started saving screenshots. Every text from my parents, every photo Amelia sent me from that engagement party, every voicemail, especially the ones dripping with manipulation. I backed them up one by one into a folder on my laptop labeled Simply for Later. That afternoon, while Ray took a nap, I sat in the hotel lobby with my laptop open, pretending to scroll through honeymoon destinations. In reality, I was looking up the exact terms of my grandmother's will, the one that specified the necklace was to be mine. I still had a scanned copy saved from years ago when I'd helped my grandmother with paperwork, and there it was in plain language. I leave my wedding necklace to my granddaughter, Lisa Harper, to be worn by her on the day of her wedding. It hit me then that what my mother had done wasn't just morally wrong, it was legally questionable. But I didn't slam the laptop shut or call anyone to confront them. I knew better. If I lashed out now, they'd spin it the same way they always did. Lisa is overreacting. Lisa is ungrateful. Lisa is making a scene. So, I smiled politely when the hotel staff congratulated us. I posted one carefully chosen wedding photo online, ignoring the dozens of texts from relatives asking why I wasn't addressing the situation. I kept my head down, outwardly calm, while inside, something sharper and colder than I'd ever felt before was taking shape. They thought they'd gotten away with it. I was about to make sure they never saw it coming. When Ray and I returned from our short honeymoon a week later, my focus shifted. Instead of drowning in that hollow feeling, I poured myself into the things I could control. My marriage, my career, and the life we were building without my family's approval hanging over it. The first change was at work. I'd been a mid-level project manager at a fast-growing marketing firm, good enough to be respected, but never loud enough to be noticed by the higher-ups. That changed quickly. I stayed late, volunteered for projects nobody wanted, and within 3 months I landed a major client that boosted our department's revenue by nearly 40%. The CEO personally thanked me in front of the entire company and promoted me to director. With the new role came a significant salary increase, and I started investing seriously. I'd already been dabbling in real estate for a few years, but now I had the resources to buy not just one, but 3 rental properties in prime areas. Within a year, the passive income from those alone rivaled my salary. Ray and I bought a house on the edge of the city, modern, sunlit, with a home office that overlooked the river. Our social circle grew too. Without the constant negativity from my family, there was more space for genuine friendships. We hosted dinner parties, weekend getaways, and charity events through Ray's business connections and art network. People we met saw us for who we really were, not as the afterthought in a family hierarchy, but as a couple who had built something of their own. It was during one of those events, a fundraiser at our home, that I realized how far I'd come. Standing in the living room, glass of wine in hand, I overheard 2 guests talking about how Lisa just seems to have it all together. I smiled to myself. They had no idea how much of that came from deciding to step back from the people who constantly tried to pull me down. Meanwhile, Amelia and I kept in touch quietly. She'd give me small updates here and there. How Alina's wedding planning was spiraling into chaos. How my parents were grumbling about how distant I'd become. How Jolie had started showing up at family gatherings acting like nothing had happened. I never engaged. I never defended myself. The silence worked in my favor. They had no fuel for their drama, no fresh outburst to twist into their version of events. And all the while, I was documenting, saving receipts, photos, and every little piece of proof that painted the full picture of what they'd done. One afternoon, almost a year after my wedding, I got an email from a national business magazine. They wanted to feature me in a piece about young professionals who had achieved financial independence before 35. The feature came with a glossy photo shoot and an interview about my investments, career growth, and philanthropy. When it hit newsstands, I knew my family saw it. Amelia confirmed it. My mother apparently bought 3 copies just to see if it was really me. And still, I heard nothing from them. No congratulations, no acknowledgement, just silence. The kind that's heavy with pride swallowing and quiet resentment. I wasn't looking for their approval anymore, but I knew deep down that my growing success was setting the stage for something bigger. Because the necklace, the lies, the missed wedding, they weren't forgotten, and the next move I was planning would make sure they never forgot them either. The turning point came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, nearly 18 months after my wedding. I was at my desk reviewing contracts for a new commercial property I was buying when an email from Amelia popped into my inbox. The subject line was short but loaded. Thought you'd want to see this. Attached was a PDF, high-resolution scans of the inventory list from my grandmother's estate, complete with signatures. The necklace was there, clear as day, with my name next to it as the designated inheritor. But that wasn't the part that caught my attention. At the bottom of the document was a set of signatures, including my mother's, and a note that read, "Released to Alina Harper for temporary use. June 15th. To be returned to rightful owner." Temporary use. The date June 15th was the night of Alina's engagement party, which meant my mother had on paper acknowledged that the necklace was mine. And now, nearly 2 years later, she had still not returned it. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. My pulse quickened. This wasn't just an emotional betrayal anymore. This was a written, legally binding acknowledgement. That same week, fate handed me another card. Through work, I had started collaborating with a high-profile event planner who specialized in luxury weddings and galas. Over coffee one afternoon, she casually mentioned that she had just booked a massive wedding for a client with ridiculous demands. Bride's name is Alina Harper. I kept my expression neutral, but my mind was racing. Alina's wedding was happening in 6 months, and from the sound of it, it was going to be big, lavish, expensive, and very, very public. The planner, not realizing the connection, went on about how the venue was an exclusive estate, the kind you had to book years in advance, and how the bride wanted everything perfect for the family image. Family image, it was almost too perfect. I now had 2 things: undeniable proof the necklace belonged to me, and insider knowledge about the single most important event of my sister's life. And unlike my wedding, her big day was going to be packed with extended family, business connections, and media coverage. I started making quiet moves. I hired a discreet but highly skilled attorney, not to send a lawsuit yet, but to review the will, the signed release document, and every scrap of evidence I had saved since my wedding day. He confirmed what I suspected. I had a strong legal case to reclaim the necklace, And if I wanted to, I could pursue damages for wrongful withholding of inherited property. But I wasn't ready to file anything yet. Timing was everything. I also began attending more networking events in the city, subtly expanding my circle into areas I knew overlapped with my family's, business leaders they admired, journalists who covered society weddings, even the owner of the estate where Alina's wedding was scheduled to take place. I never mentioned my connection to her. I just made sure I was in the right places, shaking the right hands, making the right impressions. By the time spring rolled around, I wasn't just in a better position than I'd ever been. I was in a position of quiet influence. And the people I was now connected to, they'd be at Alina's wedding. The final piece fell into place when Amelia called one night, her voice low. "Lisa, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but Mom's been bragging about how she's keeping the necklace safe for Alina to wear on her wedding day. She says you don't care about family traditions anymore, so it's better off with her." I thanked Amelia, hung up, and sat in silence for a long moment. The stage was set, the date was locked, the audience was guaranteed. And for the first time in years, I felt the old ache in my chest start to fade, replaced by a calm, steady certainty. When my move came, they wouldn't just lose the necklace. They'd lose the narrative they'd spent their whole lives building. The day of Alina's wedding dawned warm and bright, with the kind of golden light photographers dream about. I woke early, not because I was invited. I wasn't, of course, but because the plan I'd been building for over a year was finally going into motion. I spent the morning in my home office going over the folder on my desk one last time. Inside were neatly organized documents: my grandmother's will, the signed temporary release paper with my mother's signature, dated photos of the necklace at Alina's engagement party, and correspondence from my attorney. The last page was the pièce de résistance, a formal letter addressed to the wedding's venue owner, the event planner, and most importantly, Alina herself. It was an official demand for the immediate return of the necklace to its rightful owner, citing legal clauses and including a clear warning about the consequences of non-compliance. The timing was critical. My attorney, a calm, polished man named Vincent, was scheduled to handle these documents at the venue at precisely 3:15 p.m., just as guests would be arriving and the pre-ceremony photos were beginning. But that was only part of it. In the weeks leading up to this day, I'd quietly tipped off a lifestyle journalist I'd befriended, someone known for covering high society events, but with a knack for sniffing out the drama under the glamour. I didn't tell her everything, just enough to pique her interest. That a certain heirloom necklace being worn today wasn't actually in the bride's possession legally. She'd done her own digging, confirming my name was attached to the inheritance record. She promised nothing, but I knew her type. If something happened at the wedding, she'd be ready. At exactly 3:17, my phone buzzed. It was Vincent. "It's done," he said simply. "And Lisa, your sister didn't take it well." Through Amelia, who was texting me under the table from the bridesmaid's suite, I got the play-by-play. Apparently, Vincent's arrival with the documents had caused a ripple through the wedding staff. The event planner read the letter, went pale, and immediately pulled Alina aside. My mother tried to brush it off, saying it was just a misunderstanding. But when Vincent pointed to the signed release and will, the planner quietly reminded them that hosting an event with disputed property could open the venue to liability, which meant, in no uncertain terms, Alina couldn't walk down the aisle wearing that necklace. Amelia's text came rapid fire. "She's screaming at Mom in the dressing room. Jolie's trying to calm her down, but she just threw a hairbrush at her. Oh my God, they're taking the necklace off right now." And then the one that made me lean back in my chair, satisfied. "The photographer just packed up the jewelry shots. She's in tears." I didn't post anything. I didn't gloat. I simply waited. By 6:02 p.m., the first whispers had already started circulating online. Grainy photos of a tense-looking bride without her signature piece, accompanied by vague captions about last-minute changes and family disagreements. The journalist I'd tipped off posted a short but loaded article the next morning. The missing heirloom, the quiet drama behind yesterday's lavish Harper wedding. The article didn't paint me as a villain. It didn't have to. It simply laid out the facts, quoted the will, and ended with the line, "The necklace is now back in the rightful possession of the granddaughter it was intended for." Which of course it was, resting in the velvet box on my desk where it had belonged all along. The calls from my parents started almost immediately after the article went live. I didn't answer, because this time the silence was mine to give. The fallout was faster and harsher than I expected. By the end of that week, the story had been picked up by a couple of other local outlets. Nothing huge, but enough to make its way through the social circles my parents valued most. People who had always fawned over them at fundraisers suddenly had other plans. Alina's new in-laws, who had been proud to marry into what they thought was a polished, respectable family, were furious that her wedding had been tainted by public embarrassment. Amelia told me in hushed phone calls how the tension in their house had turned suffocating. My mom blamed my dad for not handling it quietly. My dad blamed my mom for signing the release document in the first place. Alina, meanwhile, had been trying to spin the narrative online, posting old photos of herself in the necklace from her engagement party, captioned with vague quotes about family meaning more than property. But the comments under her posts told a different story. People were asking uncomfortable questions. Some even tagged me, saying they were glad justice had been done. Jolie, my so-called best friend, didn't escape unscathed either. She'd been one of Alina's loudest defenders after the engagement party, but the article made it clear she'd lied about my supposed guest list drama. Several mutual friends cut her off completely. When I ran into her months later at a networking event, she couldn't even make eye contact. The necklace stayed in my possession, exactly where it was meant to be. But it had become more than just an heirloom now. It was a symbol, a reminder that I didn't have to play by their rules anymore. I didn't need their approval, their invitations, or their version of the truth to define me. I never spoke to my parents again after that. Not because I was angry, though I was, but because I realized there was nothing left to say. They'd made their choice the day they skipped my wedding. All I'd done was make sure the world saw it for what it was. A year later, on our anniversary, Ray and I went out to dinner, just the two of us, in a quiet corner of the city. I wore the necklace for the first time. As the light caught the golden diamonds, I thought of my grandmother, how she'd wanted this for me, and how it had taken nearly losing everything to finally claim it. Ray caught me looking down at it and smiled. "Feels like it's home now, doesn't it?" I nodded, not needing to say more. Because the truth was simple. They had taken themselves out of my life, and I had finally closed the door behind them. And I didn't just lock it. I threw away the key.